introversion is not a flaw to fix, nor an obstacle to overcome. It's an invitation to live deeply and impact greatly. The notion of introversion is one that has been around for quite some time and was initially coined by the psychoanalyst Carl Jung. He described introversion versus extroversion as being one's need for solitude versus wanting to engage the world. And over time, this has transformed and morphed into introverts being someone who is more shy or quiet or bashful, even antisocial. Yet the truth is that none of those make someone an introvert. Introversion is about how someone processes stimulation, with introverts needing to internally process things, all of the stimulation that they take in, and extroverts needing to engage their world and process it externally. So for example, an introvert in hearing a phrase or having an engagement will not only hear the words that the person is saying, they're noticing their body language. They're trying to decide what the person is maybe feeling or thinking about the topic. They're looking at how other people are engaging. They're looking at the environment around them. They're thinking and trying to decipher whether they should react, what part of this they should react to, what is going to be the best response, what's going to happen once they do interact, etc. And all of these plates are juggling in the minds of an introvert as they're having this one engagement. So understandably, their energy is drained and they need time to step away from stimulation in order to process this jumble that they've just taken in. And yet it is this internal processing that gives them really the ability to shape and change worlds. It's really it's something of a disservice to be honest, when we only think of introverts in such a limited view. And we've had a number of talks, most especially the talk by Susan Cain, one of the most watched TED Talks of all time, where she talks about the power of introverts to not only bring their gifts to the workplace, but how they're able to add value to organizations and to those that they impact. And yet for all of this discussion and research around introversion and the different types of introverts and how the brain processes dopamine and all of these things that are being explored with introversion, there's something lacking. There's a major something lacking. The experience of introversion is not a uniform affair. Not all introverts are treated equally. And so the experience of introversion changes as you come to the intersection. Now, for us introverts at the intersection, this is referring to introverts who have a multitude of identities, intersectional identities. I personally guide women who are introverted women of color, and I guide them along their way to really bring themselves to the forefront, but that's not important. What's important is what I've come to discover in working with these women. I've heard their stories. I've listened to the experiences that they've shared. I've read what they've posted online. I've read as they've poured out time and again their experiences, sometimes reflecting, sometimes ranting. But what I found that has been consistent is the way that introversion is often weaponized when it comes to women of color. Now, this notion of intersectionality is one that has been around for decades. It was initially coined and brought to the forefront by Professor Kimberly Crenshaw in 1989. Now, intersectionality is simply this methodology that looks at all of the nuanced and multifaceted ways that humans experience life. So when you consider the experiences of an individual, taking into account their race, their gender, their ability, their sexual identity, their class, their geography, all of these different things that color in and shade our life, our experiences begin to change. They begin to morph, and we begin to notice some differences even within demographic groups. So the experiences of white women is often different than that of Black women, with race being an additional intersection. The experiences of able-bodied Black women is different than those of disabled women of color, or Black women in this case, with the additional intersection being ability. Disabled Black women have a different experience than queer disabled Black women, with gender identity being the additional piece, so on and so forth. And so even within these groups, even as you get more granular, the experiences, another way of saying it is how people react and how people engage with others based on their different intersections, then begins to change their life experience. So as you begin to add these layers, there are certain benefits as well as challenges that come with your intersectional identity. But what's fascinating is not only how there has been a dearth of research into the lived experiences of intersectional introverts, but also for the women who are sharing their stories, and there are thousands of them. These women have shared time and again experiences within their workplace, within their families, within their intimate relationships, even within themselves, where introvert becomes a four-letter word. In fact, a number of them don't relate to the word introvert because it doesn't feel like them. Or it's become so poisoned that to call someone an introvert is like telling them their mother's ugly. It becomes something that is then used against them. So for example, some of the stories that I've heard from women that I've worked with are women who were told that they couldn't be promoted because they were too quiet and the boss didn't know what they were thinking. Women who have been denied promotions because the bosses or even the team that's deciding felt like they wouldn't be a good fit because they don't like to spend time with the group after hours. There have even been women who have been pulled to the side or even given warnings because a coworker felt uncomfortable with their quietness because that person didn't address them in the mornings. But somehow there wasn't an issue with others who didn't address them, and that offended individual never even approached the woman. One of the most egregious examples, and sadly was shared by more than one woman, of where they were told that because they were so quiet, they were not being a good representative of their demographic, because everyone knows that Black women are loud and like to go to parties, and she didn't do any of those. These type of macro and micro aggressions happen time and again. And for introverted women of color, not only is this damaging and does it take a toll on the mental and emotional wellness of the woman, but it has implications for generational wealth, for being able to purchase a home, to provide for college education, to invest. And yet, while these women at the intersection may be having their introversion used against them, there's also a set of women who are using their introversion to their advantage. Women like Beyonce, Issa Rae, Melody Hobson, Stacey Abrams, Naomi Osaka. These are women who are dominating in their respective industries, and they credit their introversion as why they are successful. You see, these women understand that introversion is the secret sauce. Introversion is your invitation to dive deep into this one life that you have and to use that to your advantage to impact those around you in great and small ways. And so the challenge is first and foremost to shift what it means to be an introvert, to recognize that introversion is not experienced the same. And for those of us at the intersection, knowing that there are people that we can look up to and we can take note of how they use their introversion, not to suppress who they are and not to redeem themselves from some flaw, but rather to dive deep into the truth of who they are and to bring that truth into the work that they do in the world so that we all are influenced, impacted, empowered, and transformed. This is the essence of being an introvert at the intersection, bringing your fullness, your wholeness to the forefront. Or, as I like to say, show up, be awesome, go home.